Sex is the reward for life, not life itself. Sex is simultaneously very important and unimportant at the exact same time. It's how life perpetuates itself, how you pass through one level from one generation to another. But at the same time, you can't glorify sex, or you shouldn't glorify sex, but you should glorify God instead. Sex is a mirror to life itself, in that men who are great and incredible are able to dominate the material world, so much so that children or new things can come out of it. Odin said that the way you should see your life is as if you were put naked in a bed with a cute other naked redhead. If you were put there, you would have fun with her, right? And Odin said this is how you should perceive life. Puts you in a place so that you can enjoy life. It's the culture's responsibility to do this, and the culture gives you the foundations on how to live a happy life, whether tradition or religion or social institutions or a church, you know what I mean. And the reason you're miserable is not you, the viewer's fault. Instead, it's your society's fault. The reason your people don't have the will to live is that your society hit a really difficult level of the game. The era when a species first attains godlike power, but lacks the wisdom to use it properly. So the gods are really, really happy we did this, and they're really, really sorry and have more empathy than you could ever understand for our condition. They see us as teenagers now. We have to learn to grow and find our own way in the world. And the way I perceive this is that they say that they find us to be completely pathetic and disgusting. Our men are weak and our women have become demented. And they said, though, that's not our fault, because the stage we're at requires an incredibly fast social build-up and release of tension. And the Europeans did that, and that wasn't foreseen in advance that the Europeans made that breakthrough, but they did. And then you had the Industrial Revolution, science, the discovery of the world, the Reformation, all in the last 500 years. So incredibly rapid change, and they're really proud of us because we hit so many developmental levels so quickly. But all things must come to an end. And in the 20th century, when our population was rising really high, our society had to have an off switch, because the natural world demands off switches, and industrial civilization increased us so fast that the natural order needed to have us to have an off switch for our own safety, because we were advancing so rapidly technologically that we were going to get ourselves killed with some ridiculous technology or another. What we're currently seeing with wokeness and population collapse is one of the nicest scenarios for an off switch. And they said they're proud we reached this point, because if you're society is facing mouse utopia and population decline, it means nothing else has killed you. We haven't had a genetically engineered plague. We haven't had a nuclear war. We haven't had World War III. We haven't had supply chain issues. We haven't run out of oil. So the spirits want to pause and thank us for how proud they are of us that we've made it this far. And they said, this population collapse or dying from wealth is the coolest way to die. So they're really proud of us because they said, quote, a society has to die. A civilization has to die. It is better to die rich than to die poor. And the West, we're not going to die. We're not going to die because of this video. I apologize for bragging, but we got this far. I need to let off some steam. So the West's not going to die, but the women are the intuitive connection to the environment, and men are the cultural programming. Women are eternal across every society, and they respond to stimuli. The men are culturally programmed by that given society for its civilizational goals. For example, the father's role is to imprint how the left hemisphere, or how you relate to power and money and authority and responsibility. Men imprint that. The father imprints it on a child. The mother imprints your subconscious reactions to your environment. So your mother loves you. Hopefully, mine didn't. So your mother loves you. She tells you you're handsome. She tells you that you shouldn't worry too much. She hugs you when you're scared, because your mother's imprinting your subconscious assumptions and your father is imprinting your conscious assumptions. And so what happened is that there was such a huge evolutionary mismatch between the environment we evolved for and the environment we live in, that women, through feminism, rebelled against the system because they weren't getting what they needed from a natural, healthy environment. And so this is why feminism crashed the birth rate so much, because women are taking orders from Mother Nature that we are in such an evolutionary mismatch they're not going to have children. The way we have to have kids is to fix the evolutionary mismatch and live in an environment closer to our ancestors. And what we are seeing now is, and the reason that our society fell apart, is that we entered an evolutionary system where there was no previous social traditions that allowed the ability to process an urban industrial civilization. So we gave our power to the bureaucracy to manage our interactions in an urban society because that's what we had to do. It was necessary with 20th century technology. And the spirits say we don't judge you for that because it was necessary under the incentives of the situation. We will judge you if you don't improve and change from that. So the bureaucracy, which gained power due to having an urban society where you can't operate on an interpersonal level, made an alliance with women to basically predate off men. And this is the current system, and I'm calling your bluff. Our entire social structure is a system so the bureaucracy can work with feminists to predate off men so the society stops breeding. You ended up in twisted, perverse incentives where the bureaucracy was resentful of the culture because they can only see the world through money and power. So they see the culture as stopping them from getting money and power, but they don't realize they are servants to the culture. The culture is the boss. They are the ones who are there to help it. Your society isn't your present society. It's not the people alive now. It's a contiguous line from your ancestors to your descendants. So this is why I'm intervening in the game, because both your ancestors and your descendants are calling you out for your bullshit now. You guys are fucking crazy. I was sent to you by your bloodline, which is why I work for Odin, since he is the genetic king of my people, the Britons. Since we can sense your blood, we know what your genetic wiring is. We know what you know. Your ancestors are really trying to help you here, and I am their gift. It's hilarious. I was summoned by them in the same way we are all summoned by higher forms. We as individuals were all spawned by higher forms like gods, spirits, nations, peoples, social classes, regions, and family line. This was obvious for all of human history until the present. And your life is not super important. Your life is an extension of your broader lives. And I am an individualist. I'm an individualist till the day I die. I stand for freedom and individualism. So I'm not like a friggin' commie or a friggin' Nazi who's going to tell you to submit to the state. The state's lame. I will tell you, and I will shame you until you submit to your own duty, because I don't believe in the state telling you what to do. I believe in men having honor and doing it themselves. Is it a coincidence that I keep an ethnic map of the British Isles that my family passed down to me from the 19th century? Is it also a coincidence that my speciality is anthropology and history, given I'm working for the biosphere? Odin would like some gratitude for the West and the British Empire's success. As we'll discuss later, modern science and the mechanical wizardry the West used to take over the world was made by the worshippers of Hermes Trismegistus. So we can't overstate that Rudyard isn't special. This may sound ridiculous, but these games aren't predetermined. Rudyard just happened to win the game this time. Keep in mind, gods make thousands of bets, and nations produce hundreds of heroes, almost none of which work, and then we backwards rationalize which ones were successful as being ordained. But there's a lot of ordainment going on, and most of it fails. Keep in mind the universe works on a probabilistic level, and so for every person who works, 100 fail. And since Rudyard won, we are going to backwards rationalize why, but there are loads of timelines where Germans, Chinese, French, Russians, or Arabs win the game, and they have a handsome, young, smart man who then explains this video to their audiences to go backwards through history to say why they won. You mortals really overthink everything. Rudyard's just Rudyard. This story is true. He's just a smart and good person who made a bet. We assessed Rudyard was able to do this when he begged for his own suffering to end as a child. He had a unique mix of genetics, personal factors, cultural background, and knowledge. After Rudyard made the deal, we went back in time to make sure all the details fit together. Remember, God controls time. We can do that when we want to. Treat Rudyard as Rudyard. Don't think too much about this. Rudyard doesn't want to hurt you. He's just been shoved into something so enormous he needs to share it with you to not go crazy. Rudyard did the fucking work. That's it. His genetics are a little better than you, but look at most of the people in his family. He's nothing like most of them. They're mostly middle class and obscure, so genetics can't be everything. His blood helped, but Rudyard did the work. Rudyard is clearly not a god. He's just a smart boy who read 900 books, hiked the Appalachian Trail, made a political faction since he realized he could. This boy loves you more than he could ever possibly say in his words. We call him a boy since he's fucking 23. Do you really understand what that means? This boy's nearly a teenager. He's nearly killed himself multiple times since he loves you so much he wanted to save his people. You treated him like fucking garbage for his whole life. That's just unforgivable. To be more accurate, Rudyard's mom made the bet. The details of his mother don't really make sense until you integrate this detail. She's clearly an incredibly sentient and intelligent person who made the decision to do something so stunningly evil and demonic, it's hard to believe. My dad told me something a few days ago that really hit me like a bullet when he was visiting me in Texas, where he said my mom would wander through old cemeteries in the greater Philly area and look for people who died in the colonial, Revolutionary War, Civil War era and liberate their souls from torture so they can move on to the afterlife. My mom would tell me growing up that she would speak to ancestor spirits, and lots of the analysis I'm feeding you now is stuff I got from my mom as a kid. My mom's story makes more sense. Why she sent me to tango, ride horses, taught me philosophy and about religion or mythology. My mom made this deal for me, and I was forced through the horror to accept the deal. Although I could have just died. My only choice besides dying was accepting the deal past a certain threshold of suffering. I think when my mom was brain dead for 2 days, God or the devil, and I think both at the same time, told my mom that she could either die or accept the deal to live. She surrendered her soul to a demon, and the rest happened from there. My family's apparently symbolic for modern civilization. The spirits wanted to help us since they could see our suffering. They can see into our souls, and they could tell our society is deeply miserable. They say that when you look at your society, you are looking at Rudyard. We hate to be this blunt, but communism is as evil as Rudyard's mother. The boomers will be remembered for thousands of years after this as a generation that nearly killed civilization, comparably to how you think about the bad places in the Bible, like Sodom and Gomorrah. What they said is that when you look at Rudyard and you see the admiration that you see for Rudyard, this is what we see about you as Western civilization. Sister suffers totalitarianism, and that she is a Maoist pushing for social suicide who doesn't want to have her own children or continue her society. This is comparable to the waves of totalitarianism that have washed over the modern world stretching from the French Revolution. There's a detail I forgot to mention here. Odin tells me I killed a god. I'll tell you how in the next few minutes. You see, leftism and modernity were some of your attempts to do that. You see, for the last few centuries, your entire civilization has been trying with all its intellectual might to create a psychic shield against any other spiritual forces. This goes by many names, but I'm going to call it secularism here. The reason your ancestors could see dryads, gods, and demons in their daily life, and you can't, is that your society has created an enormous psychic wall against all spiritual influence. This was what your priest class, or scientists and professors, have been doing for centuries, since their self-interest is to deny every other form of magic except theirs. Magic is the ability to turn a symbol into change in the material world. It obviously exists. Examples of magic are coding, the scientific method, electricity, medicine, religion, culture, writing, the nation, and philosophy are all different kinds of magic. What your society did was saying that magic that worked is called science, and magic that didn't work is magic, thus magic isn't real by definition. It's so hilarious that the society with by far the most powerful magic ever doesn't even believe in magic. It's truly a divine irony which is wrought into the human condition through the nature of consciousness itself. Your society made a really, really stupid categorical error that's completely unforgivable, which you made to rationalize your own laziness and stupidity. Look, if God tells you he's real and he's saying smart stuff, you should just assume he's real. If you go to the spirit world and talk to God, God says some facts. Listen to God. We really, really find this unforgivable in the spirit world. What you did is not cool, but this is also a failing of your society's priest class, not you, because your priest class was hijacked by the bureaucracy. The elite sees you as cattle, and even worse, factory farmed cattle. You get shoved into your pod, you don't get to breed except for those they can artificially inseminate, where animals, they have a single chad that impregnates all of the The single stallion will impregnate 20 mares, and then the other males will be castrated, called geldings. This is what your society is doing right now. I stand so that men won't be cattle. A man cannot be treated as a cow, and for that to happen is a mortal sin. Although I do not support violence, I will die for this cause. We don't need to have violence because our enemies are so innately weak and lame that they will crumble under the pressure of others realizing their lies. You have a life, and you have my life for this cause, where I will die for this. I stand so that other men can stand. I have suffered to tell you that you are not weak. You don't need the managers. If I can be strong, so can you. I have set you free. You no longer need a master, and you are a free man. Another thing, how you treat animals in the forest is unforgivable. Keep in mind how you treat others is reflected in yourself. When we put animals into factory farming, you were creating a society that would eventually try to do the same to its own people. As the animal lord, I'm going to call myself the deer lord, but this is a pretty cute beaver. I stand for the other deer of the forest. We do not honor the forest, and thus we rape the land constantly. The forest and the animals would like some respect. You really should ban factory farming, and you should eat meat, but you should make sure the animals live happy lives where they feel loved. The animals in the forest love you so much. Why don't you love them back? Look at the cute beaver. Do you want to hurt the cute beaver? Your ancestors have been so mean to the beavers. You killed them. You wiped out all the beavers in North America and Europe. You should help, or the beavers have kind of survived. I saw some beavers in Pennsylvania, but the beavers used to be nigh extinct. You should help the beavers reproduce. The beavers build beautiful dams. Thank you, Mr. Beaver. So here's a lesson for you. Those who believe in a soul which relates to God can be your friends. Those who purely believe that human relationships boil down to money and power cannot be trusted, since they don't have any moral axioms to hold them against. You can't hold them to their deal because they don't believe in any moral code. And humans all emit vibrations without even thinking. This is kind of obvious where people have psychic states which they emit onto others. You are partly a composite of all of the psychic states that ever went around you. Los Angeles emits a very different aura from Austin, and if you live in either city for long enough, the aura will rub off on you. In the same way Gandhi or Hitler were people where their leadership very clearly guided their nation in different directions. A demon is a person whose ruling personality points psychic energy downwards. Examples of demonic plague in history are the French Revolution, Nazism, and Stalinism. I don't know how to say this politely, but you guys kind of let demons take over everything. This is why your society is falling apart and you're trying to commit civilizational suicide. You lost the ability to assess others for demonic possession, and so your society is falling apart now. The left draws their magic from expertise. What that means is the left uses their magic or their ability to control an entire world and its destiny. Because keep in mind, left has taken over almost every part of the world at this point. Whether Asia, Europe, America, South America, Africa, Australia. And this worked given the technocratic jobs that experts work in result in addiction to the exercise of power, because the people involved are forced to be ants in the industrial anthill in the bureaucratic machine, and thus out of resentment they fantasize out being a god, capable of reworking the world in their image. And the underlying issue behind the left, as the Unabomber said, is industrial over-socialization, where because we're cut off from our innate communities in the countryside, we are forced to surrender so much of our human character in order to cooperate in the vast interconnected system of industrial civilization. And the left's bluff is that they got all the wise men of supposed wise men of our society to agree to them because they have the expertise. And they were able to do that because they were able to make a system where you had to go through their priest training system called the university in order to speak on an issue. But it's clear the university system's completely broken and they're pushing really evil stuff. And Rudyard did something incredibly heroic by calling the left's bluff. He investigated each of the warrens of expertise the left based their power off, whether human nature, philosophy, history, genetics, religion, physics, and many other fields. What Rudyard found in each field is that the left's narrative was just completely incorrect. He made a triangle which was capable of capturing every single leftist point. This triangle is that people are not equal. The world is alive. You don't control reality. This triangle invalidates every single point in the left. It's all pretty easy to explain, since the leftist order is controlled by the idea that humans are malleable blank slates, which the state should socially engineer to perfection. However, these 3 points disprove every single thing the left says. From all the science we have in the historic record, reality is clearly an interactive system where social engineering doesn't work, because the act of forcing others with power, in turn, shuts down how the system works. This is why communism fails. As we look at the edges of science, we find that in every single field above, especially so biology, psychology, physics, and politics, social engineering fails, and the attempt to measure the universe completely fails, because in every single field, you are butting up against a chaos that you can't understand, and that chaos exists because there is free will. Because both we as humans and God has free will. So the universe is not predestined, because the universe is the accreation of an infinite amount of choices made in individual time, which is why you can't predict the future, because the choices that determine the future haven't been made yet. By interacting with the system, you change the system. The left use all the world as dead phenomena, like a car they can rip apart and re-engineer, while the universe is alive. At the bottom of leftist philosophy is the idea of social constructionism, or that if you can seize control of the government, you can engineer life to be anything you want. In high school, they said we could use social engineering to make women as good basketball players as men, and trans or importing immigrants from different societies and not telling them or explaining how to assimilate are all examples of this. We all know in our blood that this is insane. This is the bottom of the left's philosophy. I'm calling you out. That's all a lie, and we all know it's a lie. The left is a loop where they're correct by definition. In said loop, they start with incorrect premises, and then they are correct from the definition they started from. They constantly change the definition so you don't notice the game they're playing. This then leads to tyranny. I challenge the left's bluff. I want any leftist who is willing to debate me to prove me wrong. Prove me wrong why I just didn't kill your god. None of you can beat me since you're just wrong. Every single underlying premise in your world is incorrect. I killed your false god and none of you can stop me because he never really lived. I already won. The more you wriggle against my triangle, the more the triangle brings you in and it crashes you, because the more you fight against me, the more everyone else realize you're liars. Rudyard made a list of 12 demonstratively false assumptions implicit in leftism. This is just to hammer home the point like EMDR, because we need to reprogram how you process consciousness from these assumptions. And so here are the changes I made. 1, we determine reality. Change to, we submit to reality. 2, nothing is ever enough. To everything is just what it is. 3, the world is dead. Change to, the world is alive. 4, we are all soulless blank slates. Change to, we have all unique souls. 5, everyone is equal. To, some people are innately better than others. 6, the downtrodden are good. 2, morality and success are completely different axes. 7, progress is innate. To, we make progress happen. 8, everything is material. To, accept natural law. 9, there are easy answers to life. To, life is innately mysterious. 10, life has no meaning. To, we die without meaning. 11, we are rationally disconnected from the world. Change to, our minds are molded by our surroundings. 12, self-loathing is a virtue. To, self-loathing is as bad as hubris. Watch the video I'm about to release called Shatter the Glass that covers each of these in greater depth. I killed your god. I killed your god because he never really existed. You made your society run under a false god since you were too weak to talk to a real one. The only thing powering your god was social approval. Now I called your bluff. I killed the social approval. Now that your bluff is called, your positions are completely indefensible. You can't be a leftist anymore. God tells me I already won. I won because I said so. I'm not sure I'm completely correct, but I am completely sure that you are incorrect to the highest degree. You can't ignore this. I won. You know that already. I can see reality in more dimensions than you can. I have completely surrounded your position. Every single move you make from this point as the modernist materialist left makes you weaker. Every single move you make from this point on hurts you more. Enjoy your last moments as a religion. I killed the god my mother served. The left is so stupid since they worship entropy. I read Avola's book on Hermeticism about a year ago. He forced me to download all the Hermetic symbolism. I just thought it was a cool book, and I had no idea what 2/3 of the symbols meant. I thought, this is kind of weird. I don't really know what this is about. And a year later, after I finished the book, the Hermetic alchemical symbolism is all I think about. This took over my fucking mind. When I'm stoned at my house, I think of the innate symbolism of water, or the prima materia, or the 7 gates. Go fuck yourself, Avola. I never asked for this. I know that you knew what you were doing at the time. Apparently, I have an innate genetic connection for this stuff because certain subparts of the population have, the first time I beat my mother when I was 10, she stopped raping me forever. The detail about my dad having mercury poisoning freaks me out, since Mercury is the Latin form of the god Hermes, which is the same god as Odin. The metal mercury is how he transmits his presence. I used to keep a list of all the stuff in the Avola book that just applied to my life. Then I captured a circle and a triangle, which you can see with the symbolism on the US dollar. Our founding fathers were really in tune with this stuff, and they built America off this symbolism because the European upper classes were in tune with this stuff in the medieval and the early modern periods. The final segment of this video will be explaining how Hermes has already been playing in Western politics and world politics forever. You just haven't realized it yet. So I captured the left circle and my triangle, which is symbolic for the right and the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere has to serve the right hemisphere. I also lit up the tree, which I'm going to explain at the end. When I did all of this, Odin said, "Do you have any idea what you just did, mortal? You killed a god. You have no idea what that even means. You just changed the course of history single-handedly, Rudyard. What you did is just the spiritual equivalent of Alexander the Great's conquest of the Persian Empire. You just destroyed the thing that blocked your civilization from psychic energy. Rudyard, who the fuck are you? You are the first mortal I know of who did this. That really, really means something. I can't overstate that. You know, Rudyard, I keep running the simulation until cool stuff happens, which is my motivational system. But what you did is so ridiculous, I need to stop the game to show the public. What this young man did is so innately incredible, I am literally stopping the game to force you to watch it. I had frankly given up on your society. You were too lazy and stupid. Every empire falls. It's not personal. However, what this young man did was so deranged, I am going to intervene in the most direct way possible. This young man has saved you, and you don't even realize it yet. You are the god killer, Rudyard. This young man cut out the wall that was blocking you from the spirit world. You can all access the spirit world now in a way, in a manner comparable to your ancestors. God's not dead. I can't overstate that. You just stopped calling him. You can call God now. Do you know what that means? If you're ever worried about something in your world, you can just ask God. The left was holding back your progress while claiming to do the opposite in their classic fashion, given that they are cut off from access to... Oh yeah, the left was holding back progress while claiming to do the opposite in their classic fashion, given that they cut off your access to the divine, so they were the only ones who could practice any kind of magic. To be fair, the left is so advanced at setting these hyper-complex psychic traps that we don't blame you that much for falling for them in your context. True progress only stems from the divine, which is why your society isn't creative at all. The spirit world is yours. Enjoy responsibly. Your society is already demonically possessed, so this should help you out. I've appointed this young man as Lord of the Tree of Life. He now is the Lord of the ability to relate to the spirit world. He will help you explore the spirit world. This is a discovery on the scale of Columbus reaching the New World. The spirit world doesn't exist in the way you think, but it also never did, and that was never the claim. It's a crazy topsy-turvy shadow world, but you knew that beforehand. The spirit world clearly exists, and people can go there. If you can go to a place and communicate with it, it empirically exists. You have a god's words that the spirit world is real. Remember, God is real. You're not. You're just a fantasy he made up, which is why your world is so ridiculous. Rudyard will protect trying to move you up the great chain of being, and he will protect thinkers, adventurers, mystics, the great, the glorious, and others. We will protect as much as we can those trying to help evolution move forward. Your age has been so cruel to them, and it's painful for us to watch. Rudyard has an incredibly rare genetic gift, which he cutely calls the radio tower. Rudyard has projected his psychic gifts onto others, in which most mystics can only channel one god or another. Rudyard has an ability to channel the near whole spirit world. We know you humans are about to hit some scary times, so Rudyard is our gift to you. He is the spirit world's equivalent of Wikipedia, which is here to explain to you how the spirit world works. Please enjoy him responsibly. This young man is a hero among heroes. Your society has treated him like utter garbage. This is why your people are dying. You can judge the health of a people and a nation based off how they treat their heroes. If you are mean to this young man from now on, you are cursed. We will explain in the next segment what that means. Please have some respect. Treat him like a fucking person. That's the only thing we ask. Don't hurt Rudyard for these messages. He's just a person we raped and whose life we hijacked, and he tried to do the right thing. If you don't like this, blame Odin, not him. Any government or organization which hurts the God Killer, harasses him in public or his friends or his family or in his home, will be destroyed and cursed by the Tree of Life within a single generation. Welcome to the Age of Aquarius, motherfuckers. Odin was very attached to that sentence. He kept on trying to get me to say it like a dozen times. Hi, everybody. So, if you were a normal human being, your reaction to the last few hours should be a combination of terror, horror, hope, fear, excitement, anticipation, joy. I don't fucking know, man. This video's got too many emotions. You guys have to watch this. I negotiated my contract with the gods, and so part of the contract is I have to voice my emotional state at having to do this for you. I never consented to it. This was forced on me. And so the next segment of this story is just me voicing my immense resentment of you and how much I hated doing all of this, because I'm the fucking 23-year-old who's supposed to fucking do this. I was in high school 6 years ago. This isn't cool. Go fuck yourself. I shouldn't have done this. What the fuck is wrong with you people to make a fucking mortal do this? What the fuck? And so this next segment is just wish fulfillment for me. 1600s English backsword. This is holistically the best sword, where these were called murder weapons in the early modern period. Yeah, so this is a Russian cavalry saber, 19th century era. This is a Celtic longsword. It really matches my garb really well. This is my Crusader longsword. This is a weapon that was used in the High Middle Ages. I should really sharpen and clean this one up. This is a 19th century sword cane that my dad got for me. Weird stuff. Where I was speaking to a friend who's written like 12 books on mysticism, and he is a wise older fellow. And he said, Rudyard, the weight of responsibility you are putting on your own shoulders is completely unfair. You are the crest of the wave. You are not the wave. You have to share these messages with the people so that you don't go crazy. Because I see all your issues, and my hope is to help you with this. I need to let go of this bullshit. It's why I made a fucking, I don't know, how long this video gonna be, like 10 hours, more, or whatever. I thought this video would be like 3 hours when I started, 2 hours. No, too much content here. I'm sorry. I had to make this video. I apologize. What I fundamentally think happened is that I have a certain pretty rare genetic ability that people in previous societies called priests or sorcerers or whatever. This is my best explanation for what just occurred. And I think our society created a huge psychic shield wall that blocked away that kind of energy. My entire life, people have fucking smothered me and bothered me, and I hate it. My family moved out to the fucking forest for a reason. We were trying to avoid you people, because you suck. Because everything you do is so mean and lame and petty. I just wanted to avoid you. I wanted to live in the fucking woods and just read. And then I was forced by a fucking god to do this. I didn't want to do this. I could have been. Like, before you guys ruined my life in the last few years with your leftist ad blockade, I was going to be rich and famous, and then society fell apart. I had no opportunity. I never asked to do this. This was my hand was forced. And my other choice is going back to hell and dying. So this is why I did this. I didn't want to do this. I was forced to do this. And you need to understand that. And I feel such cosmic levels of resentment that they pour through me, where I have screamed into my pillow for an eternity to get me to do this. You don't understand the level of suffering and horror I have faced to reach this point. You just can't. You physically can't. So fucking respect that. Respect, if you can't understand it, so please give me some fucking space and give me some fucking breathing room, because everything you say, you're constantly trying to take my shit. Just don't take my shit. Get the fuck off my land. And I have one real request. If you want a pretty accurate assessment of my personality and the things I do and don't like, just look up INTJ on Myers-Briggs. Yeah, I have one real request from you. That you don't bother me. I am not a threat to anyone. I am from a deranged honor culture in which my honor was so consistently insulted that I had a deep psychological need to cleanse my honor. My honor is now clean, so leave me the fuck alone. I don't want to do that again. I am satisfied by 4 things: learning new knowledge, leading my men, posting on the channel, and the company of beautiful women, and also nice walks. These are the nice walks. I really love to walk. If you believe I am a god, not a man, and if I believe that, the game is done and the game loses. And I know some of the nature of the game. I'm not going to tell it to you now because you're probably overwhelmed, but hopefully we'll have years together. I don't want to lose my humanity. I've been trying my whole life to be a human, but I wanted to be a normal person. I actually really love my audience. As I insult your population, the woman that is the society I am now married to, I really like the What If Autist audience. Yeah, you guys just keep wasting my time, and my favorite hobby is I just like walking around and clearing my head and smoking. I love smoking cigars too. And so if I get bothered when I walk around, I am going to go legitimately crazy, because for me, walking and thinking are the same process, and so I will kill myself if I can't walk around. Sometimes when I get stoned or do ayahuasca, I can hear the electrical circuits in a house. And it's fucking demon sounds. The sounds your engines make are not the sounds of life. They are the sounds of the crushing of former life force. Venus is sexual desire. She often has nudes in her artwork. She's known as the Venus de Milo as an example. Lucifer is the light bringer. I always saw Los Angeles as the city of Lucifer because it's the city of lights, because desire is what pulls life forward. Where sexual, monetary dominance, it's the force that pulls life forwards, but it's innately addictive because it controls you. And as it controls you, you lose the ability to relate to who you truly are, and you become the addiction. And we are the society of addiction. We are about to go through a period comparable to opiate withdrawal, and I am here for you. But I still have to discipline you guys a bit more before I can say the nice stuff. And yeah, so we're the era of Lucifer, which is the electric lights. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, I need to hate you guys more. Yeah, you probably don't like me either. Yeah, I don't see any problems. I would like you to empathize with me. This is the most important thing. I do this to change frequencies in how I process the world, because I process the world in sound. And so I change sound frequencies in order to figure out how I process, to basically change my psychic shifts. I don't support war crimes. I think that, and so I am a white right-wing magician. So it was pretty obvious the left was evil, because left is the Latin word sinister, or untrustworthy, and left-hand magic was magic built off taking from others, and it's left hemisphere power-based magic where you have to siphon energy off from others. And then white-handed magic is magic that helps people grow. And I am a white magician because my energy comes from you having positive experiences. I can feed off your energy, and thus for strategic reasons, I need to make sure you have good vibes so I can feed off them to make me better off. And right-hand magic, magic that comes from God; left-hand magic, magic that comes from the devil. And witches practice left-hand magic. There are some female sorcerers, but I'm not talking about them, I'm talking about witches. And there are some male witches. And then sorcerers. Some sorcerers are good, some are bad. I haven't studied this topic that much. I've only read like 40 books on it. I need to read 2 to 3 times that much to truly understand it. But so the white magic is similar, where white magic is magic that serves God, and it recharges by goodness and letting go, which is why Christ lets us go, because only by letting us have free will can God truly take pride in our success, because he knows we did it. In the same manner, a mother and a father must let go of their children to be free. And the left hand, they want to control you, so they siphon off their energy. I am setting you free. Do you understand? I have to voice this complaint on behalf of men, where it's really not cool how our society shoves and barrages men with constantly very sexually explicit imagery, and then makes male sexuality taboo. Blocked off most ways for most expressions of male sexuality except for dating apps. And dating apps have horrifying inequality. Dating apps are a horrible situation for everyone involved for game theory reasons. Because if you're one of the top guys, you get a lot of women you don't respect. And that's not good, because it trains you in bad habits and it never makes you happy. 80% of the guys are completely screwed, and I feel sorry for them. And then women chase the top guys who won't fulfill them. And so it's a completely low trust environment where it's a completely low trust environment where no one trusts anyone else in dating. And it got really bad. And I'm going to call this out because this is the biggest issue in society, because mating is so important. And we are a society with the worst mating chances of any era ever in history. I can't overstate that. No one's having fucking kids. And it's horrible. And it's going to fucking kill our societies. Because look at how much the fucking population is crashing. It's already killing half the industrial world now, which is why everything's going to hell. And so this is so disgusting. We're a society with constant sexual imagery where people don't actually have sex, and when people are interested in sex, they're shamed. People are shamed for heterosexuality, which is why there's so little heterosexual content in Hollywood or in pop culture now. When was the last happy white family you saw in a movie? I was watching the Vinland Saga TV show, and that's a Japanese TV show. It's one of the first happy white families I've seen in years, and it's Japanese. And so how can we be a society where, because again, I don't dislike gay people. I just want people to have kids. And the idea that me saying I want people to have kids and I don't think human sexuality is bad is taken as an attack on gay people means that your emotional circuits are fried. You are completely hysterical and you can't think clearly. And so, of course, people should have families and start kids. Of course, human society should continue and we should propagate the society our ancestors gave us. Of course, we all knew that. We were just enabling evil witches who enviously hate everything. As I prepared for this, I had tens of hours of calls with Merrick. Yeah, I'm glad I dropped this video. I don't actually want to do that much. It's all chill vibes from now on. I'm fucking freaked out by this, and it happens periodically. The thing with psychic abilities, and this is also what the government agencies that work with psychics found, is that it's a specific ability which people can harness sometimes. So they have hundreds of records of stuff like drawing Soviet military bases, finding the geographic location of military bases, reading rooms in... So I'm gonna just to finish this, I'm gonna just quote some of my favorite song lyrics. Yo, this is me, not you. This is from a song I love. I like Japanese music now. And this is Dark Crow. Anyone, everyone, I will crush them all. Enemies, let me see. Now I will see you fall. Kings and gods may change the odds, but I'm the one who makes my final call. Those lyrics really speak to me on a profound level. Hi. It's like 9 p.m., so the way I commune with the divine is I take CBD and then I text Merrick, and I go through my texts with Merrick to figure out when I'm in a trance. And I'm kind of in a trance now. So, yeah, you're getting this from the source. The thing I am about to tell you is the most important thing I have discovered. And if you don't watch any part of this video, watch this part. I purposely structured it so you'll have to watch the whole thing together for it all to make sense. But this is the thing I am most proud of my innovation to philosophy. And this is something I really believe we've sorely needed, where everything around us is dead matter. What that means, but I'm here to tell you everything's going to be fine. We're going to start being nice to each other again. Where my project here is I want people to have healthy, organic social interactions based around shared moral values, based around actually good things. And as an introvert, I feel safe doing this because I'm not going to force any bullshit on you. If an extrovert did this project, man, they'd be trying so hard. And the way to navigate psychic space is when you get stuck in a psychic situation, let's say you're in a spirit world, the demon's attacking you, don't take yourself seriously. Once you no longer take yourself seriously, you can pull back and leave the situation, because the way the spirit world works is that you dream it. And so if you have faith in your own dream, God, this sounds so lame. If you have faith in your own dream, that can overpower someone else's dream. That's how I survived the spirit world, because I had complete faith in my own survival and my own existence due to want to grow. It's through the process of effortlessness. You can't force something. There is a time for everything. I like to say, follow the Dow to wealth and wisdom. By that I mean the Dow Jones, or the top performing stocks in America, and the Tao, or the Chinese philosophy of Taoism. There's multiple mystic traditions around the world, all with very deep roots that all share very similar ideas. Read Houston Smith's book Forgotten Truth, which is the best book on this topic, or the underlying philosophic concepts all world religions share. But I keep on getting derailed because there's so much interesting stuff to talk about, where Taoism is the Eastern Oriental tradition. It's the Eastern mystic tradition. Hinduism is the Indic mystic tradition. And then you have a sub-variety of different Western mystic traditions between the Hermetic tradition, the Kabbalah, which stems from Babylon. The two great centers of Western mysticism were Mesopotamia and Egypt, or the two earliest civilizations, and then Rudyard is tapping into a Northwest European mysticism developed by a figure named Odin who lived in the Bronze Age. He'll talk more about that later. The times you were successful were times you didn't worry and you just followed the flow and you did what you like. And you have to be responsible and you have to assess whether or not you made mistakes, and then from that figure out what you want to do. But the way that the spirit world operates is that in your relation to the spirit world, because all the realm of ideas in that philosophy, intellectual concepts, science, religion, these are all part of the realm of ideas, or the Platonic forms. And so that's the spirit world. And so when you relate to that, because in many different things have spiritual elements, one nation conquering another one does, sexual love does, the conquest of new technologies is a spiritual thing, because you get new technologies when you've attained a certain level of technological progress. No, you attain a certain level of mental and philosophic progress where God sees that you are psychologically advanced enough to be able to pass on to the next level. Where you look at the history of philosophy, you find that there was a philosophic and a religious breakthrough, and then from that came the technological breakthrough. You see that with the Renaissance, followed by the rise of capitalism. You see it with the crisis of the 17th century crisis. That horrible period of burning resulted in the Enlightenment, in the intellectual breakthrough, and then from that came the Industrial Revolution. So your society shut off the ability to relate with the realm of forms independent from what your leftist and modernist priest class told you to. So you're going to get fed a lot of new ideas, because the level of mental development you have is predicates the level of how much you can control your material environment. I'm speaking in a lot of different circles here, but I need to get to the main point I started this video with, which is life and death. Where life and death have an innate physics to them, in which they are so inextricably bound together, where when you increase one, you increase the other, and there is no life without death. The fear of death is the thing that powers life. A life with with few fears of death is a life that's far more boring, and it doesn't generate as much life charge because there's this innate force to life. Henry Bergson, who is a philosopher, I keep on going through philosophy books and I skip him because I find him boring. He developed this idea of life force, and it's this active life charge, and you are happy when you get to relate your life charge and to feel others' life charge. Example of this is children. You added a new life charge into the world. Another example of this is having friends and doing cool stuff where let me use an example. The philosophy I'm describing, the Hermetic philosophy, stems ultimately back to ancient Egypt. And they built the pyramids because the way their philosophy worked is that they saw the pyramids as a huge spiritual nuclear reactor, because their idea is if we make something super, super cool, people across all of history will respect us. This will unify our country together through the shared difficulty of building it, and it will create a national symbol. And so the way they processed it is the pyramids were they were a magical nuclear reactor. And they might have been right. I haven't read that much about Egypt, but life force rewards cool stuff because the anima mundi, or the mind of God, is powered off extreme emotions. And learning is not learning until learning's not learning until there's an emotion attached to it. This is why school is so boring. You're forced to cram all these human life experiences down your throat, and you become very resentful because you never asked for this, you never consented it. You were forced to go to school. You were forced to spend all those hours there to learn skills that weren't really useful. Schooling's got some positives. We have complete literacy, but it kills creativity. And so the learning you care about, the learning you find interesting, is learning with an emotional, moral element to it, because learning is something your body does. You go through the struggle of the world so that your body may learn. And then over the course of your life, there are a multiplicity of options or different destinies. In medieval philosophy, destiny is the best possible life God gave you. And God will reward you because he drops hints to how to find your destiny. And I found my destiny, and I'm super happy about it. In most timelines, I would not. And so you can see your hints for your destiny, and the destiny powers the game of evolution so much more because it provides so much life charge. And then you have your fate, which is your average outcome for your life. And so when you look back upon your life, the thing that you think on your deathbed was, how much cool shit did I do? And so the active life charge from being cool and having fun and doing awesome stuff, it powers life, because when future life thinks of you, they are inspired. Where, look at the great men of history. They became great men from reading about other great men. The Roman Empire spawned so many future empires because they admired the Romans and wanted to imitate them, wanted to take their thing. So life, through awesomeness, expands itself further and further more. And life's ultimate goal is evolution, and it uses consciousness as a tool to direct evolution. Where I am speaking to your consciousness. Your consciousness is a thin time knife that exists in a very specific sub-region of time at any given time. There's a 1-second moment of decision, and this moment of decision is as long or as short as you can be. You can speed up or slow down your concept of time, because remember, when you were a kid, there were certain moments when you felt really, really bored, and so a class took an hour and a half, but when you were playing, it was half the time. It's because your perception of time moves at a certain speed. And so when you're not rushing things, you relate to time in a way in which you don't feel stressed, because you have spent your quiet period self-reflecting and figuring out how to interact with your environment. So you need to spend time alone thinking about how you interface with your environment, and then don't force things, because when you force things, you end up in bad mojo territory. You're not in your destiny, you're operating further down. And your society is so obsessed with time, and it's so obsessed with catching up, that you're killing yourself, because nothing you do is ever enough. So you are enough now, but you could also be way, way cooler, and you should be. This is the attitude you should have for life. And so you've got the life charge, and that's generated by doing fun stuff, and masculinity is the force that powers evolution. And then the masculine takes the feminine and they mix together and they improve together. Where greatest empires, Rome had incredible military formations. They had incredibly high social cohesion. Mongols, they had the best cavalry. They had an incredibly high cohesion. You're going to keep seeing this pattern. They had very high cohesion, and they were ruthless, and they were really good at mobile warfare and cooperating through that. British, incredibly high social cohesion. They had a very well-balanced social structure, and they had an advanced legal code that gave people incredible incentives to cooperate. So what patterns do you see with the greatest empires in history? And this applies to biology, it applies to everything. They really worked on themselves, and they really looked inside to take responsibility for their situation, and they're all religious, because you first have to accept, I am powerless against the world. I could die tomorrow. You have to accept you could die tomorrow, and whether or not you live or die is God's choice. It's not yours. Once you accept that, you can have fun, because you stop taking yourself so seriously. And the biggest issue of your era of history is that you take yourself far, far too seriously. It's killing you, and it's a real shame, because we like you so much. Aww. If you watch this video, you should be aware of a concept called the Great Chain of Being. I've mentioned it a few times, but didn't really explain it. The Great Chain of Being is something I took from mystic and medieval and early modern philosophy. Basically, human life is a tree, and the tree contains all consciousness. And the Norse said that there were 9 worlds. And like Asgard and Vanaheim and those different places. And it's funny, when I was a kid, and this is why my life is way too weird, I told the teacher the Norse were right, that this is the real map of the world, because I was a fucking edgy teenage child. Yeah, I would say that the Norse were right about having the tree of life. But what the fuck? I said that when I was a kid. And I also believe dragons were real as a kid. I don't think that's actually true, because dragons, they exist in every major society, but no archaeological evidence whatsoever they existed. I'm here to keep it real with you guys. So, Great Chain of Being, basically human consciousness exists as a tree, from higher forms to lower forms. So this is the spirit world. Our material world is what you see outside. The two are blurred in weird ways. There's multiple dimensions. You don't need to understand that now. In thousands of years, you may have to adapt your mental model, because the way mental models work is that you have a certain theory of the world, and then there's a back door, which is the concept you use to integrate information doesn't fit in your worldview. Every ideology's got to have a back door. Christianity, it's God. Great Chain of Being, higher forms are heaven, lower forms are hell, and the way that operates is that if you have faith, you move up the Great Chain of Being. This is ideal. This is material. You need both. This is why the tree unifies them. Yahweh is the Lord of up here. Satan is the Lord of down here. There is innate polarity to the universe, so for everything, it's an opposite thing. And thus, this is why these two are at war. But the spirit world's multidimensional in that there's multiple, there's infinite dimensions, bro. Just so many different things going on. You wouldn't believe it. And whenever you think you hit it, there's something else. Because God wants to keep you entertained. Where the universe is powered by boredom. If you want to understand the universe, think of women. A woman's psychology is the same thing as how Mother Nature operates. She is motivated by boredom and likes drama because it's at least interesting. As a man, you have had too many threats of dying, so you have moved past this, but we've saddled you two together. You two make it work. You seem to like each other enough. Up, God, down, devil. You use faith to move up the Great Chain of Being. So faith is the lubricant through which God communicates through you, and you can build faith over time to different spiritual forces. This is how religion works. And so you pull on their energetic Warren. Rudyard is a work in progress. He's 23. Accept it. He'll get better. Some stuff he says now is wrong. So of how to get from one of these. So Hermes wanders around, and Odin is a sub-Norse variant of Hermes Trismegistus. He tells you how to get around the spirit world, so that's kind of our goal here, where how do we get you to cross psychic space? Because as of now, your society, due to downstream effects of the Industrial Revolution, is surrounded by dead matter. So we have to use faith and group cooperation, and this is difficult. This will take a while to figure out and do correctly. Do not get too excited. You are very prone to getting excited, so calm down. Nothing interesting will happen soon. And to figure out how to project across psychic space from your current suicidal state to a state closer to God. And Hermes is an ally of God because he moves forms up. The devil moves forms down. And the spirit world's a fucking huge place. There's so much, whatever you can imagine is in the spirit world, because you're imagining the spirit world. It's infinitely large. It's also deeply maddening because everything is nothing and yet everything. And spirits like being in mortal bodies because your reality makes sense. Their reality doesn't, and it's purely built off will. But look at the great empires. They had this profound will that drove them, which they paired with the material ability to make correct decisions. And so what I fundamentally see here is a problem because you people only relate to dead materia because the Industrial Revolution wiped out organic, long-developing social connections, and it made you so wealthy that you don't interact with others in a real happy living way, and thus, due to that, you're depressed. And you hate yourself. And it's not your fault. You got through a really complex era of history. But you're stuck in a bad area of psychic space. And you need to change your actions soon or you will die. And we really do not want your civilization to die. Because you have brought so much into the world and you make the game interesting. Before you guys showed up, it was just the main Asian civilizations fossilizing. So the Asians did a lot of really cool stuff earlier in the game. They slowed down in the Middle Ages, and that really annoyed us. But you guys launched the game ahead really far. So we like the West. We want you to survive. And the core of this message is just be responsible. We're seeing how you're running their countries. It really scares us. We see that you are trying to kill yourself and you lack the self-awareness or understanding to realize that that is not because you're racist or sexist, because you rationalize whatever your emotional state is. You don't actually know what you think. You just pick an emotion and then rationalize it. So you're rationalizing your feelings of self-loathing and projecting them upon your nations, while in reality it is a historic condition in your specific era of history. So you all need to calm down. Let's have a minute of silence in the Quaker tradition to think about this and not worry too much and to realize something good happened. So let's hold on to this moment and figure out what to do next. And don't bother Rudyard. And with all of this, what I am showing you is a relatively sane and scientific vision of the world. You have positive and negative life charge, all of human evolution. Suffering is the way we burn away weakness. This is why historically golden ages come after horrible periods. You are going to live through a difficult period. We want you to know history is long. The other historic time periods have empathy with you, and they're trying to help you here. So, yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. You guys are part of the spirit world. You're part of the family now. So you can talk to all of your ancestor gods, and you can talk to your religious leaders. This is a message just to say, if your emotional reaction to being disproven is too strong, that's a rationalization. You guys need to start cutting out all the rationalizations. They're killing you. So leaving Eden gave you the ability to reason, but also protect. It also gave the ability for demonic possession. Animals can suffer demonic possession. It's really, really rare. I believe that Aristotle and Plato were both correct about different things. So your civilization's advancement was so rapid that it fundamentally, and I'm here to get on a sled with you for line go down. So, the computer casing I used for my computer came off. What's that? Um, I don't want us to fucking die. And I'm purposely wearing a fedora to mog the haters. I need to articulate a handful of points. First is that your concept of your identity and your history is fundamentally very deeply flawed and wrong. Cool. Did I tell you guys I would wear a suit and I'd sometimes bring a top hat and wear a cane in high school on Thursday? It was Fancy Thursday. I got some of the teachers to do it. I'm not going to listen to a friggin' you. So... Your concept of history is fundamentally incorrect. The human consciousness is a sort of biosphere where there are lots of different sub-personalities and personality types. You got a bunch of different types of wizards, like priests are different kind of... Priests connect to the spirit world differently than sorcerers do, differently than mystics. You'll figure it out. You got a lot of history. You can go back through your records. And the way the spirit world works is you have a series of different sub-factions that are at war. They fight wars out of time. Good, God versus Satan. This is the world is a cruel cycling place where the Indians and Chinese are at that level. Yeah, so if you want to go to heaven, you can guide yourself to heaven. If you want to go to hell, you could do that. But there is a not low chance I just saved your religion from extinction out in the industrial world. I am basing all of this off medieval Catholic mysticism. In medieval mysticism, Hermes is the lord of the upwards mystic development, and this was something that was very in tune with the Christian tradition, in which, I'm gonna ditch the hat for now. So, in the Christian mystic tradition, Hermes Trismegistus was treated as equivalent to one of the pre-Christian prophets. So the Catholic Church would fund art with images of Hermes, Plato, Socrates, Aristotle, and actually I don't know if Socrates is on the list, but it's definitely Plato, Aristotle. The great rise of the West across global civilization was due to the individual, due to men like Odin or Hermes who stood for themselves and wandered knowing many lands. I'm here to empathize with you, understand you, and then to build a coherent narrative of how the world works so you folks can get through the next age of history. I want to explain how the spirit world works, material world works. I'm just here to I'm here to tell you video game lore. We're the best video game ever. You could not explain the Industrial Revolution to an ancient Babylonian because they didn't have a concept of rational objectivity or 100,000 years ago, when we were friggin' apes in the African grassland. Now we're apes in buildings who are depressed but have godlike power. And nothing worthwhile is done without suffering. Evolution guides towards greater degrees of consciousness because God needs you to not be bored, so when you get smarter, you get rewarded. And that's an important detail, where Hermeticism, which is the thing I'm selling, this entire video is like a free trial for Hermeticism. You can have more of this if you're a Hermetic. You can have more interesting things like this. What that means is that everything's connected, so there's 100 historic connections you could draw between our era of history and other eras, but nothing will change the fact that our era of history is special in itself. This is why you're both simultaneously special and not special. And the only way you can relate to psychic space or your environment is being self-aware of your own body. I know I am Rudyard. Rudyard is a human. This is what I know. The fucker who's pushed around by the bigger sides. I am protecting him. And I stand so that other men can stand. When I read history, I consistently find the powerful drive the weak down. And that's not right. And, sperm has been such an important part of this video, is that sperm is the material you use to pass on your identity onto others. You have such a beautiful gift to pass on who you are through all of history. And the way you do it is by finding a woman. And then you can have children. And this is magic. It's so beautiful, and you change, and you can participate in the game. And your society is so scared of it because you were taken over by people who hate their bodies and who hate everything, and they warped a vague sort of moral code that originally made sense into one of the most evil things ever in human history. So, the priests of your now dead religion did a really clever switcheroo on your ideas with your mental mythology. Because mythology has to exist, it's just how you process the world, and it's how you relate to your environment. So, mythology is the mental switchboard you have subconsciously. And your society's mythology is mostly a combination of Hollywood, Freud, and leftism. I might be forgetting some, but that's what I've assessed largely. Most of these were not that well thought through and are basically just rationalizations for lazy people and for the foolish. So, the mythology you have is that the origin of your society's immense godlike power and incredible wealth is due to service of material form. This is a trick entropy told you that the mental node that caused your society to be so successful was your complete alienation from your environment, or objectivity. So, objectivity is useful in some ways. It's a way to, especially for dead materia, objectivity is super, super important. However, once you're doing it at the human level, you have to use empathy as a way to figure out the incentives and the mental states of each player. So, the Western narrative of myth of how your civilization perceives itself is nothing happened before Thermopylae. The Greeks created logic and created secularism. Greece died with classical civilization. There was a 1,000-year dark age, and then the Renaissance thinkers brought back reason and objectivity with modernity, and they brought back bathing and killed the witches, and then science and reason and objectivity, or being split off from the divine and the spirit world. Your separation from the spirit world is the thing that gave you your immense success. And this narrative of history has like a chapter on Greece and Rome, skips everything else, then it's all West European intellectuals starting in the 1500s or 1400s, and it doesn't even look at those societies. It will ignore completely that the scientific revolution and all those other innovations occurred in very religious societies, that Europe lost its competitive edge and technological ability as it lost its religion over the course of the 20th century with Nietzsche's Death of God. God, I hate Nietzsche so much. Ancient Egyptians developed a certain system to produce life matter. Then it was transmitted through the Greeks, then to Europe. And there's multiple kinds of magic. So there's the Abrahamic kind of magic, which, as I said before, lets souls reach heaven. The Indic magic is a way to hit zero or non-existence, basically short-circuiting the mental wave so you experience less suffering, and so you can interact with the spirit world. This one's increasing life energy, and life energy is the thing that expands and conquers. So this is a big reason the West gained global predominance, because so it's important to see that Moses, the founder of the the creator of Judaism, he was an Egyptian nobleman, and even if that's not true, he was in an atmosphere in Egypt that developed monotheism, at least before 1000 BC, which you see with Akhenaten, the monotheistic emperor. And so Egypt developed these certain mystic traditions, and the Greeks took them from the Egyptians. And when you read if you read histories from the 19th and the 20th centuries, they will always prioritize that Western civilization starts in Egypt, and the Greeks took certain teachings from the Egyptians, where early 19th century, Napoleonic period, part of the reason there was a huge Egypt mania, if for example, certain cities like Memphis, Tennessee, or Cairo, Illinois, or Athens, Georgia were made in the early 19th century, because there was this Egypt mania, because the Masons, who were the guardians of this kinds of philosophy, they were really powerful at the time. And we'll get to the Masons with the Founding Fathers at the end of this new history. So Plato always said that he got his idea of the realm of forms from Egypt, and both the Abrahamic and the Hermetic philosophy stem from Egyptian philosophy in that time period, because the Egyptians had one of the most advanced magical mythic exploration systems of the spirit world. Different civilizations explore the spirit world differently. So Taoism, Hinduism, the Eleusinian rituals in Greece. Aristotle took it from Plato's philosophy, because Plato, we view him as a rationalist. This is the great lie. Plato was a mystic who was interacting with the religious. Plato is as much a religious figure as a philosophic figure. And so Plato is the fount of all philosophy, because philosophy is fundamentally mystic. And so when you look over history at eras of philosophic breakthrough, they stem from mystic breakthroughs, where, for example, the Greek philosophy burned with this mystic tradition, and then over time, it gradually decreased as Rome was a more materialist society than a spiritualist society. Jesus, though, was a way of reconnecting with the spirit world, where the message of early Christianity was to be one with God, to connect with God through Christ. The Muslim golden age, because the Muslims were the first people after the Romans to have a scientific and cultural golden age, they reinterpreted the Hermetic ideals, and the alchemy is the same thing as Hermeticism, or so close it's not worth arguing over. Alchemy was the biggest in that time period of probably any other period. And that was when Islam flowered. And then after Islam had its dark age with the fall of the Abbasids and the collapse of Islamic learning, they lost the Hermetic tradition. But there was the area of Tarsus in South Turkey that was literally run by Hermetics at a certain time. So with the Crusades and contact with Byzantium, these ideas spread to Europe. And then Europe saw its technological innovation. And when you look at early science, it is the wedding of Hermetic and Christian influence, because every civilization has two guiding spirits. For the West, it is the marriage of Christ and Hermeticism. And there's multiple marriages. The spirit world's very complicated. Things are not special. Things are what they are. But part of the Western psyche is the warrior Hermetic king spirit that stems to Egypt, and then the feminine Christ spirit, which also ultimately stems back to Egypt with Exodus. And both traditions are guiding the West, and we've needed both, and they're class-oriented, and it's husband and wife. Christ is the husband, and Hermes is his wife who submits to him and does what he would like. Christ is the ultimate guiding force here, and we're here to support that. And Hermeticism is here to support other world religions. It does not act as a religion in itself. I compared it to Confucianism or Plato or something like that before. So in Western Europe, if you studied the origin of science, you'd find several interesting things. The first is the early scientists, which were concentrated disproportionately among my people, the Britons. They were all mystics. And the founders of the Western scientific tradition, it's getting kind of hot in here. The founders of the Western the Western scientific tradition were theologians. If you look at the founders of modern science, they were Catholic monks roughly around the time of the Black Death. And they established the modern scientific system, pairing the inquisitive spirit that stemmed from the Greeks, which can be symbolized with Hermeticism, and the humble side that came with Christianity, which came from millennia of the Jews getting crushed and realizing they need God. The worship of God comes first, because you first have to acknowledge that you are completely servile before God, and then after that you can have the inquisitive spirit. This is why the two balance out, and why science has the Trinity system, where you test, you make a hypothesis, you test it, you check the results. This is the Trinity from alchemy. The Trinitarian symbol is significantly more important than you think, because the West structured its society off a Trinitarian model, with the three estates, that being warriors, church, and workers. And this happened because, I don't know if it's intentional or divine design or accidental, but the West's great advantage is its fluid social structure, where these three social classes fought each other so the West could have decentralized political structures and social structures, such as capitalism, science, democracy, internal wars, a variety of different methods that the West has to domesticate competition, because they understood the Trinity. They understood if you have two forces rattling together, like Republicans and Democrats, or like Protestants and Catholics, the rattling creates a better reaction. They fuck and they have a kid, basically. So Europe built social structures based off this, like the ones I described before, and these were incredibly successful because they were able to integrate change in a better way than more autocratic structures. This is why we believe in freedom, because freedom forces people to be accountable, because the government is the best when both the people and the government are well designed and moral, and they act as a countervening force to the other. The church and state should do this. This is something the West has been very good at and has given the West an enormous advantage. The West has gone into decline over the 20th century, as you can obviously see, with loss of colonies around the world, loss of economic dominance. We're still doing well though. Loss of speed of technological progress, loss of moral values, collapse of birth rate. The collapse of civilization always looks the same, whatever society you're in. Things are simultaneously new and old at the exact same time. That came about due to the collapse of the constantly competing social structures, which is due to the growth of the bureaucracy. And what happened is that the bureaucrats rewrote history in a way that was completely inaccurate, and they forced it down your throat in the 20th century, and they made history so boring you would never try to read it to figure out that they're completely wrong and lying and bluffing. History is cool. We are here to prove that. You're going to enjoy history. We are going to force you to enjoy history and the classics and cool stuff. Your ancestors are totally cooler than you, by the way. So rise of the bureaucracy killed the West's organic social structure, which is why the bureaucracy is so dangerous, because you needed the different social groups like the church, the state, the bourgeoisie, the king to fight each other. And it's why I'm an anarchist, but in a cool way. I am a cool, realistic anarchist because I support individual freedom, and I support relationships through consent and relationships through mutual appreciation and empathy, because once you access the full humanity of something, time moves faster. In medieval philosophy, there's three varieties of time. There's normal linear time, 7 days a week. There is the time of historic decision, where, for example, in certain time periods like the American Revolution or the formation of the Roman Empire, small events precipitated massive historic changes. As Lenin said, history is glacially slow until it strikes like lightning. And I don't know if that's an exact quote, but there are decades in which nothing happens, and then there are moments in which decades of history flow. So this is the time of life, and if you are smart, like me, who is a 23-year-old who's done all this, you will harness your relationship with time in a way so that you are going with the flow and you are innately able to relate to time. And time drops you hints where you don't have to worry. You're part of the life force. You will gradually pick up more and more hints until life steps in and protects you in the same way the tree has protected this young man. This young man is here to give his warren to you, to spread his ability to connect with God to you so that you can all be one with God. And so Europe did a really good job at activating really small populations. So England is the size of Michigan, but it's done so much for history. France is the size of Texas, same thing. And this is not a pro-European story. This is a pro-correct choices story, because history shows many people can rise to greatness. This is a democratic message because this is something where I'm telling you how to do it. If your country wants to be great, follow the things I'm saying. Establish the separation of authority. And when you look at America, you find that this trinity of power was something our founders were very careful about because they knew these things. And Europe made its breakthrough to science stemming from Hermetic and Christian ideals mixing together. Science is an extension of religion. It is in no way in conflict with religion, as I've been trying to show here. Science is an arbitration tool. Science is like a knife you use, and science can't tell you what to believe. Mixing up science and religion is a categorical error because science is an attempt to cut. Science is a specific method you use to relate to your environment for testing. Science is a testing method. It's not a moral code. And whenever you try to project your moral code on science, you just rationalize it, and you use science as a feedback loop because you only study the things you believe in, and thus all of your biases are confirmed. And so this is why you are dying, because you are using science to modulate your very worst behaviors, because you now say you have a scientific test where you're objectively right, which just makes you deranged and evil because you have no humility. You really, really need humility. You're a horrible society that combines complete self-loathing with just insane egoism where you think you're a god. You're not a god. You're a fucking deer. And be a happy deer. Enjoy your deer shit. And so yeah, you guys are really psychologically unwell. I keep on getting side railed. I apologize. So this is origin of part of the scientific breakthrough. When you look at the early scientists, Isaac Newton, a third of his books are about alchemy. And it reminds me of a conversation Chris Williamson once had. And I'm not going to shame Chris Williamson for saying this, because me having this standard for knowledge for him is completely ridiculous and unreasonable. But he was talking in a podcast where he said, historical figures make mistakes, where we don't fault Isaac Newton for being really into alchemy. And I was thinking, no, Newton's laws of motion are from alchemy. Alchemy was how they did it, where alchemy was a system finding God, finding gold, the transmutation of forms as the ability for the mind to transform things so you can reach up to God. Alchemy is a spiritual venture. It's not really about getting gold as far as I can understand, and you never really understand alchemy. But every single thing in Newton's laws of motion, polarity, the principle for every reaction is a counter-reaction, is from the Kybalion. The Kybalion is the guide to the Hermetic principles. And so let's go through the principles of the Kybalion, where Isaac Newton was so steeped in this stuff that it was the dominant underlying principle behind your entire concept of physics. So these are the principles of the Kybalion. 1, the principle of mentalism. All is the mind, the universe is mental. 2, the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. Principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. 4, the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. The principle of rhythm. Everything flows in and out. The principle of cause and effect. The principle of gender. And that everything is innately masculine or feminine. Doesn't that sound a lot like the laws of physics? Let's keep going. The guy who's a brilliant thinker, 2 great books in this topic, Forbidden Universe by Lynn Pinkett, that's a really good book, and then Secret History of the World by Mark Booth, also a really good book. I'll give you more if you're interested. I got a whole wall of this stuff. So Bruno, his idea that the universe had multiple planets with alien life stems from Hermeticism, because in Hermeticism, that's the idea. The universe is buzzing with life, and the universe would have alien species because the universe is always trying to produce life. And so the idea of Galileo also based his ideas of this heliocentrism around Hermeticism, because the Egyptians used the sun. They said that energy stems from the sun, and the sun is things that vibrates life out. It's like the sun is a nuclear core that with its sheer destruction of atoms allows the creation of life. And all life ultimately stems from the sun. And I don't support worshiping the sun. It's a fucking big nuclear core in the sky. We should worship God, because God is better than a million suns, or infinite suns. But you get the point. The sun makes life. It's cool. So we've established Isaac Newton, Bruno, Leibniz, and Spinoza. I think Spinoza. They were also pulling from Hermeticism. Then you get to the Enlightenment and the Romantic era, where German philosophy was pulling very heavily from Hermeticism. And the Masons are actually a Hermetic order. I've studied Masonic lore. It's actually pretty boring. It's just watered down Hermetic lore. But as an example to show you, look at this symbol in the US dollar. Anno coeptis novus ordo seculorum. Or I think that I forget what Anacoeptus means, but it's the New World Order. And that's not scary. It's just you evolve to a higher level. And so it's the New World Order. The circle and the triangle is that the circle is downward spiritual momentum, in that this circle exists to show how you can integrate with your environment, how you should integrate through your body, and through feeling your body and feeling your emotions, you can sense your environment. And the triangle is upward spiritual momentum towards God. So you should ideally have both, which is why I captured the circle in a triangle to wipe out the left, because that is a negative spiral while this is a positive spiral. The founding fathers knew all this stuff because they were steeped in Masonic lore. By the way, I have never been a Mason. I have never attended a Masonic ceremony. None of that stuff. The Masons are all old. I'm too young and cool for that. I apologize to the Masons, I know. So, Founding Fathers, for Washington, D.C., what's that monolith? The one in D.C. I forget its name. Yeah, that's an erect penis, because in the Hermetic system, the penis is that which grows life. Then you have the flat land next to it, the rolling park. And that is penis acting on materia or land. So the Founding Fathers knew all this stuff, and they built America. And E pluribus unum, our motto, is out of many one, which is an alchemical idea where the Trinity, you access the Trinity. 1 is 2, and then 2 is 3, and then 3 is 4, which is 1. Which means that when you have multiple opposing forces, like our triple-sided government, and the division, they were studying Aristotle, the division between North-South, New England, Middle State, South, judiciary, legislative branch, then executive branch, and you have federal government, local government, and state government. The Founding Fathers knew this stuff. So they built America around trinities. And is it a surprise America is the most successful country in history? This is stuff we've been doing, where the point I'm trying to convey to you is the reason the West won is not due to oppression, it's not due to reason, it's because basically upper-class white men made a deal with the god Hermes, in the same way Rudyard did with Hermes, and this deal is what made them win, because they were able to take the Hermetic philosophy, and it's why the Europeans had such advanced technology, because they were taking God, they were using formism, they were able to model the mind of God, take ideas from God, make tech out of them. You look at China, when the Confucians beat the Taoists too hard in 1000 AD, China stopped innovating. When Hinduism settled into too settle a form, it became too conservative, India stopped innovating. When Islam cut out their hermetics, they stopped innovating. Although I wonder why the Sufis didn't cause more change. But mysticism is the force of discovery. You can't be creative and not have mysticism. It's always been mysticism. And when you look at European history and world history, people leave these little winks and nods. And you leave the winks and nods as a way to see someone's level of development. And so you'll say a certain word, which they can interpret multiple ways. This is a test to see their level of development. So said upper-class white males basically weren't able to share it with the public because you had an overwhelmingly Christian moral code. And you people interpret Christianity in the most stubborn and foolish and silly way, where Christianity is a gift from Christ that allows you to live life. It allows you to do stuff, to go around, to carry Christ inside of you. It's not this schoolmarm ideology where you have to go to Sunday school and follow all the rules right, and don't let your pants sag, and be sure to be home by 9. That's not the spirit of Christ. And Vitruvian Man, the Leonardo da Vinci painting, is a hermetic ideal where once you realize your physical body, you come to understand that your body is how you relate to your environment. Your body is your place in psychic space, and I am confident I exist. Our society has tried to shatter my identity for my entire life, but I am confident I exist. I am Rudyard William Lynch, and your ancestors made this deal at some point in the Middle Ages that you have to cash in on them, where Hermes let them get godlike technology, and the goal was to use the godlike technology to show to you that Hermes was real, and we would make your lives better so that in a Christian moral code you could respect it. However, there was a clutch loss where the left used the immense wealth in the short period to seize control of every institution to block us. We all know that God is real and God runs the game. I am going to appreciate my environment and appreciate pieces of art that symbolically to me feel close. Let everything be water. Let the flood start. And by flood, I mean peaceful event. Martial pacifism. Because I am a Viking Quaker. You need to morally advance to get more technology. You need to move up through faith in the great chain of being so that you can also pull back. Yeah, I just look at the godlike technology. We could make such cool stuff that gets us closer to God. It's so much stuff. We just have to not be demonic. We just have to have responsibility for not being demonic and then not letting... I have just gifted you a system that tells you how to use technology responsibly. I hope you can understand the meaning of that. And it is of the highest importance that we develop institutions around this, institutions of human capital, to train quality men who can wield this technology, because otherwise horrifying fates that we can't even understand are possible. I speak with the utmost urgency, and I hope you can understand this and take it seriously. Rudyard is deeply overwhelmed, and he is deeply terrified, frankly, now. But Rudyard is a brave and strong person who wants to serve you, and he really wants to help you. And he understands his place in history, because we gave you a person who truly understood. And I hope that my story is able to become inspirational for other men in the future who stood for other men. Men stand for men, and by men I mean humans. Because when you stand for men, you stand for all humans. Because this can't go on. This isn't right. Lots of authors you see as rational intellectuals are actually psychics. Like Nietzsche, he had psychic abilities. Isaac Newton had psychic abilities. Because the psychic ability is the way to deal with the form of ideas. And so if you think about abstract concepts or you're intuitive, you're some level of psychic. Because psychic is advanced empathic abilities, at least in part. This stuff is adjacent to science, and American Beauty talks about a lot of the concepts we see here. And on top of that, American Beauty has such a incredible understanding of the social issues implicit in modernity. It has the cold wife, it has the corporate takeovers, the rising inequality, the breakdown of organic family relations, social status, like edgy shaman boy. And so American Beauty, another few movies that really are how I feel about this. One of them is Princess Mononoke, one of my favorite movies by Studio Ghibli. And in Princess Mononoke, these traps on me, and to break out of the traps I had to found this religion, only came about because I had immense courage and I gained self-awareness very young. You have the capability to do this. I am telling you to take your destiny. Unlike Nick Fuentes, who did that the wrong way. Favorite fantasy books ever is Corum, and Corum is about an elf prince, and I would fantasize being an elf as a kid. I really like the elf aesthetic. Finishing this up, I'm going to tell you about some of the music that was really important to me, because music is how I process thought. Clean Bandit was also symbolic to me for the post-COVID order, which I saw as a waiting room. To be fair, I like pop music in large part because there's beautiful women, but I have to have the music, and they have to be likable. And the problem is that all the new pop music is just about being a sociopath degenerate, where I'm so scared for these young women, because literally all pop music now is about hating yourself and being depressed. A lot of it's literally about suicide. You can't make a happy pop song anymore because the envious witches took everything. And I'm frankly just worried about you guys. I need to. I see your culture, and your mind is not well. Senbon Zakura, which is a Japanese. I don't listen to the original version. I listen to the more serious version. Hatsune Mika. Her voice isn't serious. Yeah, it's a Japanese nationalist song about how the Western Order was a gilded cage. The Japanese would have to revive the spirit of their ancestors in order to survive in the coming chaos. I used that mentally as a proxy for the coming new destructive order. Twilight of the Thunder God, or a song about Thor killing Jormungandr at the end of Norse Ragnarok, Last Dying Breath by Sabaton was a song that got me through high school because I would listen to it for hours on repeat. I'd wake up to it, I'd walk to it because I was constantly exhausted and scared in high school. When I was in high school and I thought I had died, I listened to that song as a proxy to me about Tobacco Island by Flogging Molly was another song. I like how hard that goes. That song was how I thought as a teenager. When you listen to that kind of music, that's how the inside of my mind is. Rising of the Moon, my father would sing me Irish rebel songs, and when I was stressed, I would sing them back to myself as a kid. And the Irish, I could relate to their aggression and being forced to fight an impossible battle. So I love my Irish people's music because it's very complex, the lyrics are incredible, and it's also about really hard situations. I love music so much. I constantly think about music. Nine Treasures has been my favorite band for my whole life. They're a Mongolian Buddhist metal band. When you listen to their music, that's what the inside of my head feels like. Arthur C. Clarke wrote a book called 2001: A Space Odyssey. And it said that in the year 2001, there would be a breakthrough in how humans processed consciousness relating to stuff like AI and space and new technologies. So I guess he was right. I was born in 2001, although it took some extra time. So there's no reason to fear, and I continue. Touch the fucking wood in your house. If society is my girlfriend, the message I would convey to you is, I don't actually like you, and we need some space. And then we're kind of forced to be here together. You can choose to reject me if you'd like. I got better stuff to do. Actually, no, that's not true. But I have hobbies. I'll be fine by myself. We are ready to grow the organization. So if you're interested in supporting the OCD, wait until February and then hit up the email I will give you. I am waiting until February since I think our relationship needs that much more time to chill out, because you must first attain chill vibes before you go hard. And I also don't want you to hurt my mother in any way. I know she's evil and she did this bad stuff, but it's still morally wrong for a son to do that against his mother, and I don't want to build up negative mojo with her because I want to clean the slate of our previous... I support empathizing with others and understanding their human conditions innately. The gods would like to throw this framing at you. Rudyard is an example of a bloodline that made the correct choices. In less than a century, they went from effectively Irish peasants to killing a god and being important figures on the national and historic stage in America. If they can do that in less than a century, what can you do? Because greatness is so often the side effect of a family that has spent years building up to it, like Philip and then Alexander for Macedon, or look at royal lines over history. You'll see family similarities. So it is your responsibility to maintain the hearth of your family. And the good thing is that we all have our own families and our own identities. So we already have that. You were blessed to have your bloodline. You should be proud of your blood. I love the world's cultures. They're not all equal, but I find beauty and something worthwhile in all of them. In all of the cultures of the world shines the anima mundi. Here we go. I state before the Lord God and Hermes that I now have sealed the contract in the Blue Room. You have my official guarantor in front of the public and my official signing that my contract is now closed. I am officially a public servant of the Blue Room. Done. Oh, God. I don't know, man. This story's pretty interesting. I'm only 23. What's going to happen next? And over the course of my life, I have worn many identities. You've seen that. I've lived in a lot of places, had a lot of jobs, done a lot of things, thought a lot of ideas. And I always felt this sense of hollowness, and that's symbolic for our society, the ghost in the shell of Descartes' philosophy, that we feel completely isolated from our environments. And I wandered across the world. I saw so many things. I saw horror so terrible you cannot imagine it. I reached up towards the heavens, and I saw God in the incredible, and I saw the 9 worlds in between. And so I can see the tree of life. I have seen human consciousness. In the same way, looking at the earth from space conceptualizes who we are in material space, the tree of life conceptualizes where your soul is. And so I've seen so much, I've done so many things to figure out who I am, because I always wondered who that was. And I now know that I have the answer. I am Rudyard William Lynch, the man who killed a god.